because of the wonderful light we get to enjoy. But if we're looking at you like we don't know who's talking, it's because we can only see your silhouettes. So that makes it ultra important for us each to state our names before we speak. Brenda, is it being recorded yet?
It is being recorded.
Okay, we are being recorded. I told Brenda I'd give her a second, and then I didn't. There she is. Am I good? Yeah. Okay. So our meeting is being recorded, and we'll all give our names before we speak, but if the committee could please, the advisory council could please introduce ourselves, that would be great. I'm Kristie Beal. I'm from Missoula.
Mike Mouthhausen from Beal.
Caleb Erlin, Fish Wildlife and Parks, Beal.
Chris Stark, CSKT.
Amy Fisher, Deer Lodge. Steve Hill, Anaconda.
Margaret Christensen, Anaconda. Maureen Connor, Granite County.
And then if you two would, oh yes, but if you two will first introduce yourself, and then we'll get the people who are online to introduce.
Bartkowiak, Natural Resource Damage Program.
Okay, and then if the folks online, if you could please take your turns and unmute yourself and speak your name, please, we would appreciate it.
Katie Garson, Montana DEQ.
Can you say that again?
Yes, Katie Garson, Forva, Montana DEQ.
Thank you.
Catherine Hausrath, attorney with NRDP.
Joel Gerhardt, citizen.
Really?
Pat Tracy, I'm with WGM Group in Missoula, engineering firm.
Kristen Ward, attorney with NRDP.
Andrew Pfeiffer, environmental scientist with NRDP.
Jim Cabbage, Butte Silver Ball.
Lynn Brando with the Montana Association of Conservation Districts.
All right, does everyone introduce themselves? Valerie hasn't had a chance to yet.
Valerie Kurth, Montana DNRC.
Chairman Maureen Connor with the council, and just for informational purposes, it appears to help on.
Just for everyone's notification, we do not have any action items today, so I want to make it clear that we're not voting on any action items today. Nick Ringsack cannot be here today. Just ask that if you all could please keep him in your thoughts, that would be great. With that, restrooms are back here. Just before you go through the arches on your right, there's a door. That's where the restrooms are. Obviously, the exits, we all know how we can get out there. And a reminder to please speak your name and be recognized before you speak so that we can make sure the recording is clear. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brian to start our first item.
Thank you, Brian Bartkowiak again, Natural Resource Damage Program. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for indulging in the new location in Anaconda. We do have a pretty full agenda today. As Kristie said, there are no action items. We will start off with an update following up on our discussion from our fall meeting and the request of the council of the Greenway for an update on their project. Next, we will have Ripple, formerly known as CFWEP, give their update to the council of all the great work they have been doing. This is not our annual update. We'll present on all of our projects projects in the fall meeting, but because of the allocation of contingency, or the recommendation of contingency funds and the interest in the Blacktail Creek project, I'll give you a little bit, I'll show you some pictures and talk about that and talk about how much that we are spent into the contingency. And then Ray and Caleb are going to lead us on a tour of Warm Springs Creek. And this again is a continuation of the conversations that we started last fall about looking into the future, looking toward the 2028 amendment, and thinking for the council whether we want to allocate more funds to Warm Springs and what type of projects that we should consider looking at. And I think we have some great opportunities for some, to look at, see some completed projects, fish traps, and some potential habitat projects on Warm Springs Creek. And with that, we're going to go to an update from the Greenway, and I'm going to try to pull up Dory's presentation.
Rather than having this back in my head. My name is Skrukrud. I'm the project manager for the Silver Greenway. We've been working on this project since prior to 1998, and this is our an update. I really appreciate the council for inviting us to be here. I know I did give you a written update at the end of 2025. So let's just go ahead, first slide there, Brian. Did provide maps, a couple of extra maps maybe on the table. So this is about a 26-mile corridor. We have 4 segments left. So the 4 remaining segments are in the yellow oval is the Durant Canyon segment that goes from Fairmont Road to Miles Crossing. That has been funded. We are currently in the process of negotiating with the railroads for a license for an access agreement. The second segment is from Highway 1. It's sort of lime green oval on the north end of the map, near Opportunity. That is from Highway 1 to Stewart Street. That has been funded with a match requirement. That has been, there's not been much progress. We have a preliminary layout, but it still has unresolved issues associated with the transfer of ARCO property to DEP. The third project is the Ramsey Flats area. So kind of in the middle of your screen, bottom middle of your screen, the darker green oval. That goes from Miles Crossing back to approximately just south of Ramsey. Dory, do you mind coming up here just because we're doing this? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was fun. Yeah, I get online. I have to make a voice too, then I can't. I don't know what I'm doing that, but so the third segment is the Ramsey Flat segment. It's generally from Miles Crossing to just south of Ramsey, Montana. This is a soft surface trail. Use of a boat was approximately half of the corridor, but the remaining segment is another piece of property that is unresolved, a property that's expected to be transferred to the state of Montana under the record of decision, but that is still unresolved. It's 25% resolved. The final project, the final connection is the Butte to Whiskey Gulch segment. It's just a short segment that goes from our current trailhead at Whiskey Gulch back into Butte. We are working with and waiting to see what happens with the work that's going on in the Butte Reduction Works lower area 1 with the trail connection there. We have worked with MBT. We have a bench to go underneath the new interstate bridges. So this is a project have looked at in the past. It should be short and sweet, but still, we are still waiting for the results of the decisions that are happening down there. Next slide. I guess this is, I sort of went through this whole description. Yeah. So as I mentioned, Durant Canyon, we have funding for this project. Partial funding for the Highway 1 underpass. We do have a $400,000 grant associated with the Ramsey Flats area that was given or granted to the Greenway Service District from the Montana Connections Business Park because they see this as an asset for the employees and workers that are out in the business park, possibly making a trail connection back to Butte. I actually know people that commute out to Montana Connections and use portions of the trail. So, next slide. A lot of you are familiar with this project. We've been going at this for a long time. We've been very successful with this program to fund to the point that we've gotten today and into the future. We have 4 trailheads, 2 parking areas, 15 bridges, 14 miles of trail, and then hundreds of acres of property that's now under public ownership, public management, public stewardship, and that allows for public access. We've had some great partnerships with both the NRD, CFWEP, for example, the fish barrier that we built just north of Fairmont Road. We've done 3 underpasses with MBT and with both of the railroads, so under rail passes and under road passes. And these are some pretty big projects, and we've been grateful for those partnerships. The next project, the Durant Canyon project, is a project that we've been working on. We actually separated this into 2 segments. A portion of that alignment is owned by the city county of UCFRB. That was a result of some earlier trades and exchanges. We own the Milwaukee Road from Fairmont Road to the confluence of Silver Road Creek and German Gulch Creek. And so that ties into the segment, the trail segment that we have along Silver Road Creek. We're going to be commencing with that project, actually starting within the week. There are some fencing requirements and gate requirements. Primarily those gates are traffic control to keep motorized vehicles out there. There is a portion of the road of that is shared paths, so there will be automobiles and pedestrians. And so there's some regulatory signage that goes with that. We're hoping to have this completed by the end of June, early July. Next slide. So that's this sort of magenta alignment here. The cyan is project 2. This is the Chicago-Milwaukee abandoned right-of-way that is currently owned by Patriot Rail. Next slide. And I'm sorry, the remainder of that little green segment is on DEQ property, and we've always been very successful in securing easements from DEQ. It's pretty performing out for us. So, next slide. So this part 2 of that of this Durant Canyon project is this alignment on Patriot Rail owned property, primarily the Chicago-Milwaukee Road. In 2007, we had worked with the previous owners and had developed a master agreement that addressed all the treatments adjacency to a live line, vertical and horizontal separation, signage, fencing requirements, all those kinds of things. Since that has happened, this business has changed hands a couple of times, so we're working with some new owners. But they have pledged to follow this master agreement and work with us on that. We met with them in 2005, and we met again in April, where they've had a chance with their operations and maintenance folks. This is both Burlington Northern Santa Fe and Patriot Rail, which operates as the BA&P here in Short Line in Montana. The kind of the nexus of the conversation is railroad liability. Railroads do not like people next to their live lines. Trespassing on those lines and how do we control that and how do we manage it. And then train pedestrian conflicts. Unfortunately, living here in Montana, we are aware of accidents that happen and deaths that occur on live lines. So certainly that's something that's first and foremost in our minds to provide the kind of protection and public education to keep people on the trail and away from the live lines. It's interesting, I think, the last time we toured the Durant Canyon area with the advisory council, we must have run into bicyclists all the time. I was out there with the railroad when we were there in 2025, probably had 15 people riding their bikes. So it raised that conversation about how do you control access. I mean, part of it is respect for private property rights, but you can't fence everybody else out. It just doesn't seem to work that way. So we're trying to come up with design solutions and strategies to move this project forward. Next slide.
Can we have questions now?
Would you prefer to have questions at the end? Yes, Steve. Yes, Steve.
So do you have some alternatives to solve that access problem? You know, fencing, you mentioned fencing. Do you have other alternatives now in hand that you can both consider?
Yes, I mean a lot of our traffic control has a lot to do with controlling automotive traffic. Our objective right now is to have public access on that private property and to make certain that people are aware of how they should and shouldn't behave on that property. It's not completely fenced, it can't be completely fenced, and it shouldn't be completely fenced. It takes away sort of the whole idea of getting into the canyon there. There are some points where the railroads have some really particular concerns. The railroad doesn't have a solution to keeping people out of there or controlling them. So we're trying to work in a partnership with them to see if we can't figure out how we can make this happen, protect them, protect our users. In the state of Montana, we have the recreational use plan that actually protects landowners if you're allowing someone to use your property for recreational use and you're not charging them a fee. You've got a level of protection from liability if an accident or something were to happen. That doesn't mean that they're still not going to sue the county, sue the railroads, and sue whoever they can. But yes and no, Steve, we have some solution. Part of it is trying to change some of the behavior out there. Part of it is both individual policing and pledges by our local government to monitor that corridor and to continue to go out there and look for issues, or if they hear about issues. We also have a strong relationship and have agreed amongst ourselves, working locally with the two operations folks here in town. Something happens, they need to call me, or they need to call someone. We don't have a lot of dialogue about those kinds of things. We don't get those calls if there's a problem out there. But I can honestly say it's not the pedestrian and the bicycle traffic that are causing the problems out there. We get more calls from FWP law enforcement about hunting-related issues on the rails. that seems to be counter to my impression of hunters in Montana who are respectful of property, but that is what we hear is, you know, crossing the railroads. It's very enticing just to cross the railroad. It's the shortest distance between 2 points, but it is trespassing, it's illegal, and it's extremely dangerous.
And Steve Bill from Anaconda, I can understand that. I mean, I know others than myself, sometimes that's good wildlife habitat.
Absolutely. Well, and there's issues associated, I mean, part of this issue associated with a lot of that fencing out there, Steve, is that the WMA to the south there, I mean, that's a huge elk habitat, winter habitat, and they need to be able to migrate out of there. So fencing them into this strict corridor along the railroads is a problem. So having those openings where we feel like it's reasonable not to have to fence something is also sort of going to improve of that migration. There's, you know, thousands of birds that come across through there. So.
Thanks, Dori.
Maureen. Thank you. Maureen Conner, Council. Dori, I'm getting a little confused here. Frequently the case, but on where's the real problem with trespassers?
Well, the right-of-way is private property. It's not public property. We don't have public access to it. That is what we're trying to
Okay,
do.
we're on the right-of-way for how many miles there?
It's actually probably 6 miles. A portion of that's owned by Beal Silver Bow, and we probably got about 2.5 miles of the Patriot right-of-way that we would be locating this trail on.
Okay. So then following up on that, how much actual trail work has been done in this area, the Project 1?
None. We're actually commencing that. I mean, Maureen, there's essentially no work to be done on the trail. It's a hard surface trail. It's the road. We're not changing that. We're not doing anything on asphalt. There's probably little to no improvements that need to be made there. Primarily, it is regulatory signage and traffic control gates and some fencing to protect a pipeline, irrigation pipeline. We've had some experiences in the canyon where this pipeline has had rocks and things like that dropped on it. It's owned by a rancher. It's their water resource. It's their water right from German Gulch. We've worked with him for years. We're going to provide some protection. People don't push boulders down and bust up this pipeline.
Maureen Conner, Chairman, Maureen Conner. So is there any, and this is kind of a, I don't know, I guess I wish I was aware sometimes, but is there any reason to think since 2007, we have a master agreement that says everybody will keep working on this, but yet it's 2026 and it doesn't seem to be getting better. Is there any reason to think that it is going to get better?
I believe there's reason to think that with this particular owner, it's going to get better. We have, since 2007, done a railroad underpass under this master agreement. We have 4 easements under this master agreement. We have a pedestrian tunnel under this master agreement. So this has worked for years. When we've gone to the owner requesting the easement, we have been extremely successful. We've had no resistance in the past. This is a new owner, started in 2024 when we made our first inquiries, and that's what we're dealing with at this point in time. Prior to that, we had an amicable and very reasonable relationship with them and never had an obstacle in place.
We did an at-grade crossing, which is pretty unusual, across live lines with this railroad, with partnership with them, and working together to construct this, because the railroad came in, did the crossing work with us, and those kinds of things, so it was a pretty good partnership.
Dori, this is Kristie Beal. I just want to follow up something that you said. You said a new owner was in 2024 when we made our first inquiries. Are you saying the first inquiries with the new owner were in 2024?
Well, yeah, unbeknownst, yeah. I mean, when we reached out to them, it became clear that the people that we had worked with before were no longer there.
Okay.
So so we had to start the whole re-education process with them.
So what forward movement has occurred since that 2024 outreach with the new owner?
Next slide. So when we had our meeting in April 2026, that was with Burlington Northern Santa Fe and with Patriot Rail operating as BA&P in UCFRB. There were 4 points of concern that they raised. These are design-related concerns that we need to find a resolution. The first one, so we're going from west.
Is this the first concern?
This is Brian.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Brian, that is not. Next slide. So we are going from west to east. The first is some additional fencing on an extremely steep slope. Their concerns are someone falling down this slope. So we have a couple of alternative fencing strategies that we are proposing for that. The second is the quarry segment. So there is an old quarry in there. They used to quarry for ballast. They used to crush for ballast. They haven't for 15 years. But it's a major staging area. So it's kind of a wide, flat spot. So right now I think they're staging some tiles and probably ties and rails there. Both railroads use it. We have the trail going through the property. They've asked us to realign it so that we can leave that open space for their laydown area and stay outside their operations. We have 2 alternatives that we're proposing, 2 design alternatives that we're proposing for that.
Kristie Beal, when will those designs be proposed?
We're in our final review, and we're expecting to send them through this week. Next week, I'm sorry. Yeah. The trestle underpass. One of their concerns, so if you're familiar, the BA&P goes over the top and the Milwaukee Road goes under this rock trestle, basically. They're concerned about passage through that and interference with traffic if there were to be an accident, some sort of emergency, and they have to mobilize large vehicles through there. And what's going to happen with the pedestrians? We have 4 proposals, ones of course that do nothing, but 2 alternatives. The opening is 17 feet wide. A typical highway lane is 12 feet, and that is sufficient for almost all kinds of heavy equipment. So we have some space there to control pedestrian and bicycle traffic through there with either a jersey barrier, some sort of fencing, some sort of bollard system. So those are the design solutions that we're presenting to resolve this issue. Finally, we have a small parking area that comes off of Miles Crossing. It's just a dirt lot. And so one of their suggestions is that we move it further away from Miles Crossing because they think that if it's too close, people are less likely to park there. I'm not certain I understand that. They think it's better to have people be able to drive and the trail be shorter. So we have two alternatives to that. I think that takes some more discussion because I'm not quite certain what that objective is. So those are under final review. So we have at least 2 alternatives for each of the 4 design discussions. The objective is to get through those to find a common solution, and that eventually we are going to receive a license which is going to allow us access through corridor.
Kristie Beal, so the hope that eventually we have a license to be able to move through that corridor has been in place since 2007, correct?
It's not,
well, my belief is that we hope to have access to this corridor since at least 2007.
okay, you're correct.
So my question is, we have four objectives that have to be met according to the meeting that happened in April, last month, a month and a half ago. One of which you said you don't understand the objective on it. So there's four objectives to meet, one of which we don't understand.
I'm sorry, that mine is in my editorial.
I want to have a better understanding of what reassurances we have that once these four objectives are met, there will be a licensure granted.
My impressions and our subsequent discussions with the railroad companies have been positive. We have been talking to their real estate, VP of real estate, who's out of Salt Lake City, about starting to look to get that actual license agreement. We didn't have a license agreement per se. Our experience had been with easement agreements, and that's all we've ever had with Patriot. This license agreement is something that's more typical for a railroad to give a license. They don't give easements. They act the same way, but they call it a license. And it has all the bells and whistles where they can shut you down, and in the case of an easement, that's the same thing. We believe that, you're right, it's not the same as license. But it's a vehicle that the railroads use. Prior to that, we didn't have a conversation about a license. We had a conversation about an access system. We have access systems. We have agreements with them to use their property for the purposes of pedestrian trail.
But not in the Durant area.
Not in the Durant area.
Okay. And then do we have any sort of a sense of cost in order that's going to be necessary to meet these four criteria that we hope might lead to a license that they can shut down at any time?
The treatments that we're proposing aren't anything extraordinary or overly expensive. We think we can do that within the budget that we have, the remaining budget that we have. As far as the cost of the license, I am not certain. I have no idea what that might be.
Thank you.
I would like to also add one other thing about working, not necessarily with Patriot, but with BNSF. At this point in time, they aren't even prepared to comment. We're going to submit these changes to them to get their comments back. They don't do things sort of in intervals. These are the four major points that we've got. They've asked us to do a lot of things. Let's put a lot of additional information on those maps. Distance from center line to the trail, all these kinds of things. So we've been able to provide that and update those. Those are site maps or project maps.
Steve Hill.
Steve Hill, Anaconda. You've gone through this for years, and it doesn't seem like you're in the Green Resource District are able to elevate these things as a priority to the village. Are there others in the state that can help elevate these things on that end so that we can make progress on this stuff? DEQ or Attorney General's office or the governor's office. Is there any way we can help from the outside?
We would certainly appreciate any help or any kind of direction that might assist in doing so. I mean, we have a relationship with BNSF, with the folks that are working on that, but it's also outside of kind of, they have one charge of their own, but then their public projects person has a different charge of their own. I have no influence at all. We don't have much. I think our chief executives have tried and are trying, continue to try and work with the railroads to encourage them and influence them to look at this more positively. If we had the support of the Attorney General, if we had the support of the governor, it would make a big difference.
Kristie, Beal, following up on Steve Hill's question and perhaps just put a finer point on that question. Is it time to ask for help, Dori?
Yes, it's time.
Let's do that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money that has gone into this project, and I can only speak for myself as one advisory council member. We spent a lot of money on this. Everybody wants this project to be successful.
Agreed.
This has to get moved off this spot. And my question is there something in place where it is being moved off this spot that we should interfere with? Or is it time to ask for help because it's not being moved off this spot? And your answer to that latter question tells me it's time to ask for help.
Absolutely. Thank you. Please help.
Steve Hill, yeah.
Okay, Steve Hill.
Go ahead.
Maureen, you were next. Fine, Steve Hill, go ahead.
Is it possible for the advisory council themselves to prepare a letter that goes directly to some of these organizations and explain the risk that exists? All this money that's been spent, we can't move this off the line in a waste. It could have been applied somewhere else. Or able to put it into perspective for them to consider some assistance with that.
I can't answer right now whether or not I think that's a good thing for the advisory council to do, but this is Kristie Beal, I apologize. But it's certainly something we need to consider, and I would like to know more about who the Greenway has been talking to at these various railroad companies to get a sense of what do they need to hear, from whom do they need to hear it. That might help move us off this feeling like perpetual spot. Maureen Connor.
Maureen, Advisory Council. I agree with what she just said. Glad to hear Dori say this, because railroads are notoriously difficult to deal with, but this is clearly, very clearly above our pay grade by its local governments combined into this MOU Greenway thing. Okay, it is time, I believe, Madam Chairman, that our method on this, since we are advisory, is that any such letter or request for help will go to the trustee council. And they then will take that to the next level, the governor, but I would also just kind of put a little note in there for our congressional. But that's where I think our role is as advisory. We certainly can write letters to everybody, but I think we make a specific request for the trustee council to take it on and
Maureen, at the appropriate time, Kristie Beal, Maureen, at the appropriate time in this meeting, I would request that you present such an action item for us to do at the next meeting. And I also just want to put a caveat on that because I know this is a public meeting, we're being recorded. I myself would not say railroads are difficult to work with. The way I would put it is railroads have a boatload of exposure, and they have to be very careful. And they want to see very specific plans so that they are focusing their efforts on providing safe rail transit and not chasing after every potential proposal that could be out there. We need to get a solid plan in place and present it to them with the support of the leaders of this state if we can get all those pieces in place. That's what I think. That's just me. That's not a statement from the advisory council. That's just a thought from Kristie Beal. Mike Halfhausen.
Yeah, Mike Halfhausen, can you clarify too, does Patriot Railway own the right-of-way and license it to BNSF? Those were used interchangeably, or is Patriot Railway a part of BNSF? Who owns the railbed and then who uses it?
There are two rail lines through there.
Okay.
BNSF has their separate railroads.
Okay.
The BAP and the BNSF.
Got it.
BAP owned by Patriot. The particular railroad alignment that we're following is the abandoned Chicago-Milwaukee Railroad, which is a road now. It was a haul road used during the cleanup. The ties and rails have been gone for years.
Got it.
But, Kristie Beal, when there's only one owner, I think, of the track at any specific spot. Do we know how different railroads own one piece of track together?
No.
Or one railroad owns the track and it licenses another railroad to use it?
No. BNSF has their own track that they use exclusively. Patriot/BAP has its own track. There used to be 3 railroads in there. There are now 2 operating rail lines in there. Patriot and Burlington. So they're separated, they go over each other, they go under each other.
So adding to the complexities, the master agreement is with 2 different railroads, not just
No,
one.
the master agreement was only with Patriot. Patriot's concerns, I mean, we treated we avoided, our whole design strategy was to stay off Burlington North and Santa Fe property. We did not want to do that, which is why and we've gone through some early conversations with them. They didn't see the conflicts or the problems with it because we weren't on their property. We were outside of the right. They were drawn into the process as a courtesy, and there's no denying it. I think they needed to be part of this conversation. And so the first meeting that we had was exclusively with Patriot. The meeting we had in April was with both railroads. And I do appreciate if we can discuss and have a strategy towards some future support. I will send to Brian the names, associations, and their titles to Brian of all those folks that were in the meeting, because we had numbers from BNSF and Beal.
Kristie Beal, Dori, if you will please make sure that the most elevated position within each railroad's real estate division that has knowledge and has been working with us, with you, is included in that. That would be great.
Absolutely. And real estate was, I mean, they did attempt. We had actually had the regional real estate representative and their VP of real estate at them.
And that was for both the NSF?
No, that was just from Patriot. Thank you for the conversation and the questions. So lastly, we are continuing to look at funding grant opportunities. I mentioned the $400,000 grant from the TIFID for project number 3. We've got applied for 4 grants over the past 2 years. We've got 2 maintenance grants. They've been primarily pavement preservation grants. We're looking to apply to an FWP grant to assist us in a culvert removal on this Durant Canyon project. We have pledges of professional services to support us in future work, pro bono gratis. And we also have a grant writer that's embedded in my office of community development that continues to look for grants that are measuring mission. Thank you.
Yeah, Amy Fisher, I was just wondering, Dori, if you could touch on, do you have a budget update in terms of how much of the NRDP allocation remains at this point, and how much has been spent?
I don't. I was not prepared to bring this, but I can provide that to you. I can tell you that we have not spent anything on the Durant Canyon funds. We did split that $1.5 million into 2 projects. We have a task order for this first project. Primarily the work that we've been doing, which is land planning, maintenance, and administration, are coming from our previous set aside dollars. I can get you an update for that also.
Mr. Beal, please do. Steve Hill.
Steve Hill, Anaconda. Dori, are there some private parcels in there that you're having trouble gaining access to?
No.
Any of these?
With the exception, well, of the railroad person. Well, no, I take that. I apologize. From Miles Crossing, this project number 3, Miles Crossing to the Ramsey area. We've been talking for years and talking more recently to a property owner about an easement across his property. He's been very cooperative with us, but is looking at some other options in the area, some grazing options for his ranch operations. FWP is now involved in trying to get some hunter access in there. So we are continuing to work. That's the last price of this property that we're challenged with. But they've been extremely cooperative.
So you feel pretty positive?
Absolutely. We're going to work it out.
Okay.
We're working with DEQ and the EPA on this also. So it doesn't involve some of their property.
Is that land transfer, or is it easement through his property?
It may be an exchange of real property for an easement, a conservation easement, or an access easement. We aren't expecting to spend any money. We are going to do some level of exchange, some type of exchange. And that seems to be, appealing to them.
Are there any more questions from the advisory council? At this time, I'm going to open it up to questions from the public. Questions and comments from the public. Reminder, please stand and come forward and state your name and address. Where you're from.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Bodette. I am the District 5 County Commissioner for Anaconda Deer Lodge County, and I have recently been appointed as Deer Lodge County's representative to Greenway. The presentation that Dori gave is a very good indication of progress has been made. Unfortunately, since I haven't been on the actual Greenway Service District that long, I'm doing a lot of catching. But at the time that the Greenway was initiated in the early 90s, I was the county attorney here in Deer Lodge County. I was doing all the negotiations with ARCO and the EPA in order to do the work. I was involved in this process. After that, I spent 20 years as the right-of-way attorney for the Montana Department of Transportation. I have probably more condemnation experience than any attorney working actively in the state of Montana at this point in time. Now I'm a county commissioner. There's a substantial amount of my district is involved in Warm Springs Creek, which we will see later, but now I'm also on the Greenway, and again, we have a substantial portion of Deer Lodge County. I think it's important that this group understands that the intention of the Greenway was to be an institutional control under the Environment Protection Agency. It needs to be understood that this is not something that is a recreational idea. This is part of the process. Where we need help is to have Department of Environmental Quality and Reach Native, the EPA, get together on an understanding and move forward with the original intent of this. I went back and read through the ROD. I read all 5 of the updates to it, and this is where the rubber is meeting the road. The problem is with NDEQ and EPA not working through this process. We're going to need help. That's where it is. But we cannot refer to this as a recreational project because that, in and of itself, limits the legal avenues that all the parties connected have in this, and we need to be very cognizant of that and not be using taxonomy that causes us more harm than good. And I'm more than willing to talk to anybody on this later, because I do have more history on this than anybody here, except mine. Thank you.
Kristie Beal, this is just a response comment, but this advisory council does not have any, we don't have any control over the DEQ and the EPA. Thank you for your comments, appreciate that. Any other public comment or questions? Anybody online raising their hand? All right, Maureen Connor.
Madam Chairman, if it's appropriate, I would like to make a recommendation in the form of a motion for an action item on our next meeting.
Kristie Beal, I would make that request that we put this on. We can't have any motions and act on them. I just spoke earlier right now, but I would love to entertain your recommendation.
Okay, this is what essentially I would see as a motion when we can do an action item, which would be my recommendation to be our next meeting. Would be for the advisory council to request the trustee council use all available means to assist the Greenway Service District's ability to ensure public access in the Durant Canyon area.
I appreciate and accept that recommendation, and I would ask Brian if you could please put that on our next meeting's action items.
Brian, you're correct. Mr. Russo is down in the program. This is correct.
All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments and support and questions. This project has been challenging and it continues to be challenging, so any support that we can get is very greatly appreciated. And I've got a couple of delivery items that I will get with Brian, the budget, probably in our railroad contract. Thank you, Dori, for presenting for us today, and please don't take anything that we have said here as anything that would deter you from the action items that Greenway has already put in place and plans to accomplish by the next couple of weeks. Absolutely, we will continue to move forward. Thank you. Thank you. The next item we have is for Ripple from the CFWEP to provide the program update. We have okay. Tammy Gordon here to do so. None of you look like Tammy. Would you please introduce yourselves?
good afternoon, everyone. We were asked to introduce ourselves. I'm Robert Howell. I am the Interim Executive Director for Ripple, so a professor at Montana Tech.
And I'm Samuel Klusmeyer. I am the Communications Memory Coordinator for Ripple.
And we are going to deliver for this talk. I would like to just kind of say a little bit of the agenda. In the first couple of minutes, I'm going to talk to you about some structural background in Ripple, and then after that I'm going to give the word to Sam, and he's going to talk about our achievements and all the good things that your support helped us to achieve. And with that, I also like to thank NRDP and all of our partners. This we need to ask you to do. Yes. So everything we do at Ripple starts with this mission statement. It's all about outreach. And with that, I need to bring in something as a professor in ecology for restoration. I need to bring in a quote from a conference that I visited back in 2019 in Cape Town. That was the 8th World Conference of Ecological Restoration, and a famous scientist there stated that every successful restoration project starts and ends with a conversation. I think here comes Ripple's mission in, and we also with Ripple try to educate the future stewards for that Superfund site that is in our backyard, that is now through kind of $1 billion restoration project, and it's a world-class restoration project. We shouldn't forget that. We should make all those upcoming generation aware of what's going on, what was the past, and what is the future to become. So we can go to the next one. I also would like to show you our staff. Obviously, a successful project can only work with this very dedicated stewards that are here, the staff that we have. I have already introduced myself, I'm an affiliator, but we have, everybody is here in the room, so it's good news. We can have questions in the different areas. We have Dan Gordon, our project analyst. We have Sam Klusmeyer, he is the communications and outreach coordinator, and we are lucky to also have Logan Ray, with our Big Sky watershed course member that is taking over now the second season and works with us. We're very lucky. The next slide shows our Missoula team with Dalit School, with our program. She's our program manager at our Missoula office, and Megan Filling, who is at the University of Montana Bird Ecology Lab. Both of them are here at really important segments of our success, because they make it possible that our outreach actually goes in the entire Blacktail watershed. And with that, I would like to ask Sam to talk about our achievements and all the successes that we had in the past couple of years, but also this goes back a little bit. And I also must announce here an anniversary, which you probably understand that Ripple was founded over now 20 years ago. So it started with Bill Callaghan, Colin Elliott, and Joe Griffin, who in a framework of a pilot project back in 2005 got NRDP funding, and since the mission has been carried on with new staff. Sorry, there's one more slide for me. So if we can have that one. So obviously everybody remembers that we had a rock star, executive director here, Raylan Brandel, who is online. And she took now a position with Montana Association of Conservation Districts. We would like to thank her as well for all the good work she has done for Ripple in the past couple of decades now. And until we find somebody that can fill in that position that really left, I will be trying to fill in and help Ripple's work. Sam, we already have everybody through here. So just wanting to make sure that you understand the reasons why we are doing this presentation. Sam actually and Logan both has joined our team in 2025. And with that, now Sam, I really would appreciate it if you come here.
Okay, so where our mission statement meets implementation is our vision statement. The mission statement, expanding environmental literacy throughout Montana, is guided by this principle that we talk about a lot. It's embedded in everything that Ripple does, which is creating environmentally literate, engaged, responsible, and empowered stewards in Montana, or more recently in Montana. And that is primarily manifesting in several ways that we'll talk about on the next slide. So, when we talk about the legacy of Ripple, we're also talking about the legacy that NRDP funding has created, because it's been phenomenal. We have 3 audiences that we have been able to reach now, so we primarily work with community members, teachers, and students, and 8 programs that currently breaks down into 2. We've had other programs in the past. This is what our programming and our mission statement is inspiring right now. And that starts with the watershed science program. Like Robert mentioned, 20 years ago, that pilot project was started, and that was the watershed science program. It was CFWEP, the Fourth Watershed Education Program. And that has continued uninterrupted all these years. Next, we have our community outreach. This is always happening because we need community vote to work with the community, right? And then we have our 7th grade Osprey program. Our Missoula program lead has done a great job building this in the recent past. We have our Birds at U program through the University of Montana Bird Ecology Lab. That is VVEP and UMBL. They're the same thing. VVEP is just a program within UMBL. And we have our low-tech process-based restoration project, which is just now kind of starting to come to fruition, which is really exciting. I'll talk about that in a little bit. We also have our fly fishing conservation camp, which has recently been paused indefinitely. We had our last one before. I'll also talk more about that a little bit. Finally, we have teacher professional development and our summer pipeline for learning students. Next slide, please. Before I get into how all of that breaks down, I want to quickly talk numbers and what that looks like in practice. And we have this cool Ripple graph that we worked very hard on, but very proud of, because the stuff that Ripple does is not easy to summarize. It starts with Natural Resource Center program. That funding is all of the student outreach that we do through the Watershed Science program. So all of the work that we do with the elementaries, the middles, the high schools, etc. And then we have our students, which includes dedicated student outreach. And that is the Missoula Conservation District and the Cubs programs. Cubs specifically reaches out to elementary schoolers in Beal. So let's talk about it. There we go. And the Missoula Conservation District is talking about our new summer pipeline program that we recently finished a pilot last summer, which is super cool. Moving down the list, we have our teachers, our teacher ed, and that is our NIH and OPI budgets. And that is also intermixed with students, because this largely represents the Pages program that we were running up until about 2025. And that included both direct teacher and student outreach, but we're counting it primarily as teacher outreach, because the teachers, by and large, are the ones that are taking that back to their students. And the more teachers you can educate, the more of an impact you can have over a longer period, which is very exciting. Finally, we have our community outreach. So we have our stormwater education here and Pick Wash. Stormwater education is closely tied with Cubs, which is why they're overlapping. You'll also notice that we have green and blue circles, because a large part of our stormwater education is the stormwater festival that we have in Butte. A few weeks ago, actually, May 20th. Is when this year's was, and that we worked with 425 kids this year, and last year it was around 245. So If you want to judge the size of these circles by the impact, which is kind of what we're getting at, you can look at that as 1,000. Because each year we work with around 500 elementary schools around Beal to do cleanups. And then as we go up, it gets quite a bit bigger. We'll talk about that later in the next slide, please. Yes. So in the past 2 years, these are the NRDP specific numbers. So what NRDP has funded and what we've done for that funding. We start with students served. I'm going to highlight 3 points of data from this. We can come back afterwards for the sake of time because we don't want to get through. I'm just going to highlight 3, which is communities, teachers, and students. And that starts with our students, which is 5,142 over the last 2 years, which smashes our scope of work, which was set at 2,000 students every year. And we have 108 teachers that were reached over the course of those 2 years, and 21 Montana communities that we work with. And that is just 26. If we look all the way back to the start, since 2005, we can see that we just broke 91,000 students, which is something that I've been waiting for with for a while, because it's very exciting. It's not funny, it's insane. Anyway, if we break that down, so if we say this is the amount that we've served every year, and very roughly we can break down what this number means for NRDP, and everyone here that's involved with that scope of work originally, that pretty much breaks down to this much every year. So that 91,000 is, that 91,000 is something that you can, which is, it's cool. Moving on to our heat map, this is another way to represent that data, which makes a lot more sense once you know the actual numbers that are behind it. So this is a heat map of where Ripple works in Montana. So we have our yellow dots representing teachers here. The larger dots mean more teachers. You'll notice that they're fairly correlated with more densely populated areas. And also with the Superfund area that Ripple primarily does education about. And the darker the green is, the more students that we observe. This specifically is throughout Ripple's operation. Okay. Now that we've talked about numbers, let's just very briefly cover all of the programs that are contributing to those numbers. And I'll try to go quick for you because there's 8 of them, it's a lot. But we're going to start with the core of Ripple. That is the watershed services program. And we've been doing this again for 20 years. And this is outreach to every school between Butte and Missoula, including the small schools along that region. So over the course of the year, we reach out to, I believe, 26. We teach in around 26 schools every year. Like 26 teachers every year, I think, because multiple teachers like this, that breaks down to a little bit less. But every school along our Superfund reach, so starting in Butte and in Missoula, gets Superfund environmental history, watershed science, conservation education to help us branch forward into the future, because this program is largely funded and, well, created and motivated by the understanding that when shovels go down, that's not when the work stops, right? You then need to protect the work that happened. And that, in my head at least, is where this gets its most meaning. Because we have educated environmental stewards, it's extremely less likely that all the really hard work that we've done to get here won't go to waste. That's really exciting. Okay, next slide. Okay, now let's highlight our community education. This is multifaceted and crazy, but starts with just local outreach. We're invited by a bunch of schools to do STEM nights. We work with local organizations to hold booths, to do educational work, and we do cleanup. This is Cubs cleanups happening around Butte. Then we have Stormwater Festival down there, somewhere for UCFRB and other community education. This also includes Pit Watch, which we just started tracking traffic to Pit Watch, which is the website that you can go to learn about the work of the pit, what works for them there, etc. And we are getting roughly around 20,000, 25,000 visitors each July. And the average pause time on that website, the average times that we spend on it is around a minute, which means Pit Watch is doing really good stuff for the ability of people to understand what work is actually doing. Okay, next one please. Thank you. Next we have our Osprey program and VBEP. Osprey program and VBEP provide really important data for the blood work. The Osprey program provides blood sampling data from ospreys, and we get a bunch of really good data from that. VBEP provides milk counts and songbird tracking over time. They do bird banding, and I'm sure Megan will have more to add, and we will have more to that after that, but that is the 1,000-yard view. Both of those programs have also exceeded their targets. The Osprey program alone reached 1,300, around 1,300 students, and VBEP reached 434, which is 134 past their target of 300. Okay, now we get to talk about the fly fishing conservation camp. The fly fishing conservation camp we led for a number of years. Recently, the cost to implement that program rose dramatically, right around, or a few years past COVID, when everything was being constructed. And it is now too expensive to run. So until funding becomes available to restart that program, then it will be paused indefinitely. Hopefully it doesn't stop completely, but for now it's paused. And then we have our Limited Crossing Space Restoration course, which just had its first go. We have spent the last year or so designing a Limited Crossing Space Restoration course for landowners, which, for anybody who doesn't know, is typically smaller structures installed at a person level without the use of large power tools to restore natural processes and restore stream systems. We made a course that was dedicated for landowners as a part of community education and outreach. And we just applied for funding to take that to the next step, which is creating a pipeline for students over the summer to connect with local experts and community members to both create student education for high school students and college students that are about to enter the workforce, that are looking for something to pursue, and for landowners that want to make their land better, and potentially recruiting for anybody that's looking for new employees. So we're very excited about that LoTech program. We are in the second year now, second and a half, and hoping that it becomes something really cool very, very soon. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. We have our teacher professional development next to highlight, and this I have notes for because we have a bunch of different things to highlight. So, specifically, our teacher training is multifaceted. I have my notes here because we have funding through a lot of different organizations, including NIH, our Blank EQ, NRD, CEPA, and EPA, to make that education possible over the recent past. Currently, the primary funder for that work is Partner Blank, and they are funding the creation of the Ecosystem Project, which is a curriculum resource creation process, project that creates cross-watershed curriculum in partnership with Park County, some representatives of Park County, to link all of the good knowledge and understanding that we've developed on the Clark Board to the environmental work that's happening in Park County, and the environmental work that's happening in Park County to the work that's happening in the Clark Board. And then we have our new summer pipeline program for high schoolers. This is specifically the Clark Fork Watershed Stream Summit. That's okay, there's a slide with the name later on, and I will remember it then, because I think we did. But this is a really cool program that the league has created. It's okay. To work with students in the advanced questions and science class in Sentinel High in Missoula, to bring high school students out into the field to do lead pack and composition studies, and then they can then use that data that they gather for their Montana science projects. And again, connecting people with local experts in the community, teaching them real marketable skills, and preparing them to enter the workforce, because we've shown them the time. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, now we're done talking about each of the individual programs. We're just left with a few updates. To finish it up, it starts with the scope of work update. There have been a few small changes that Ripples had to make to our scope of work, and it starts with the Clark Fork Watershed Student Citizen Science Project, MCPS. And that works with 9th and 12th graders in Sentinel High. That has been added as our new summer pipeline program. And then which unfortunately had to close due to a lack of students. So for the 25 and 26 years outreach, they have not been included because it no longer exists, unfortunately. Okay, next we get to tribal education. This has been a big push for Ripple. It is a part of the Watershed Science Program, and specifically BVEP in 2018 started making a concerted effort to work with CSD team members to bring that programming into tribal lands and to bring that programming, knowledge from the CSD team into the program. Remember forever. Over the 2 years, they've worked with 25 college students. We are also working with representatives from the Crow Nation to develop our ecosystem modules, the curriculum resources for teachers, and Stephanie Espinoza from the CSKT actually recently took our low-tech process-based restoration course as a way to bring that knowledge back to CSKT. Thanks. Thank you. And this is VVEP's conclusion for their work with the CSKT, because they're doing incredible work there. I don't want to speak too much.
And we are running very, very short.
Overall, so thank you. We have our funding applications. This is all the funds that Ripple's applied for in the 24-26 time period. Not all of them were funded due to the loss of federal grants, state grants, and local grants, and increased pressure on everything else because of that. Because of that push in the current political realm. We have been extremely successful. Despite it. I'll move on from there. Alright. So we have a nature of match in education funding, the match that NRDP provides, because that is how that money ripples out throughout Ripple's programming. They help provide a match for a bunch of different grants. And I'm going to switch the slide there because that is what that match looks like. So we have our NRDP budget for the last 2 years and the total of our funding, which show that we've even slightly exceeded our goal of 50% non-NRDP funding.
This is Kristie Beal, and we appreciate that.
All right. Perfect. There's a few other developments to cover before we really start wrapping up. That is CFWEP now Ripple. Robert's already covered that and passed it. We have several fundraising events planned in the near future, including our winter option. We've deepened our partnerships with departments and centers within Montana Tech to help us offer more comprehensive programming, and we are expanding our low-tech process-based restoration program. And then we have our upcoming events, which is the remainder of the programming that we have in this period. Most of it has been completed. Currently, we just have our Watershed Citizen Science program in Missoula this summer, our second year. Then we have a few outreach events, our Ecosystem Teacher Academy, which happens at the end of June. Summer events for bird banding, community list here, and restoration tours for the public. Thank you. And I just wanted to end with a quick thank you, because the support that you've all shown has really created an ongoing legacy of inspiration, change, and a lot more within Montana's next generation. So, thank you. Pass the slide. I'll leave that up. Those are some testimonials. You're welcome to read them. All the questions are ongoing, but finally, all for other parties. Yes.
Are there any questions from the advisory council for approval? Any questions from the public? Yes.
Hi, my name is Dave McKernan. I live here in Anaconda. First of all, I'd like to thank Sam for showing up at a willow harvest that we had for our project here west of Anaconda. And at some point, I'd like to show the advisory committee the project that we've completed up there, if you have time. Even today would be.
We don't have it on the agenda. This is Kristie. We don't have it on the agenda for today. We don't have the time allocated for it. But do you mind reaching out to him about? Is this a project that the NRDP is funded? Is that what you're saying?
No, we funded it completely ourselves.
This is Brian, Natural Research Damage Program. I have Dave's number. We will actually be able to see the project from about 25 miles an hour as we were driving to our first stop. So, Steve and Dave, it's right on your right when you get to the last turn.
Yes.
So as everybody's driving up to our first tour stop, keep an eye out to your right-hand side. Right when you get past town, you'll be able to see the fiber belt.
Yeah, just before you get to the hospital on their left, look to the right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and the other thing, Sam, I wanted to add was, I'm glad to see that you've got the Salish involved in this, because it's my belief that they were involved in the original lawsuit to forward this program. So, thank you.
You can tell the story about it.
Sure. Yeah. All right, but thank you for showing up and helping us harvest willows that day.
Of course, I'm excited to see it.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other public questions or comments? Steve, did you have a question? Steve?
No, not right now.
Okay. Do we have any questions online? Looks like Raylan has a question or a comment.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for taking your time with me today. For the record, I'm Raylan Brandel. I am the Executive Director of the Montana Association of Conservation Districts. However, I'm here representing myself as a citizen today and a former Executive Director for the Clark Fork Watershed Education Program, known as Ripple now. I want to say that I'm very proud of the work that the staff have continued in my absence. I left in October. They've been flying that ship with an interim director and themselves and a lot of grit. And so they are definitely due a lot of praise from us. And then, of course, that the salary savings that they have left on the table will continue their funding into a little bit longer than expected by the projections. Of special interest to me, and I think that something that is worthy of a great comment, is that the low-tech process-based restoration program is growing some legs that I think that Ripple could use some assistance with in continuing into the long-term future. Landowners are very excited about this program. Our conservation districts are ready to line up and help support getting it out there to landowners. And I think that in terms of the restoration goals of your council, that particular project has a lot of merit, especially in containing and making sure that water is retained in the upper reaches of the Clark Fork and maintaining water levels over time through the deep summer months. You all have created a legacy, and we remind you of that every time that we come before the board. And your legacy is long lasting and also has an incredible impact. We have students who are now working as members of the Department of Environmental Quality, who work within my staff team at MACD, who are working as administrators in conservation districts, and who are working at the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation. So you have much to applaud yourselves for in raising that next generation. Finally, and to that end, I humbly suggest that you continue to provide funding for Ripple into the long-term future. I know that we have been before you before asking for additional dollars, but I think that there is a case to be made to continue that funding. And I think that asking for help, as you suggested with the Greenway in our legislative upcoming session in the legislature, might be worthwhile. And so with that, I will turn it back to you, Ms. Beal. Thank you.
Thank you, Raylene. Any other public questions or comments for Ripple? Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you. Next up, we have the Blacktail Creek project that Brian will address.
Thank you, everybody. Too long. I am Brian Bartkowiak with the Natural Resource Damage Program. Again, please come back this fall when we do our project update. We will get out our annual update packet and we will discuss our projects in more detail. But this one has received particular attention from this council, and there was a request to specifically put this on the agenda. So I am happy to talk about it. If you remember from the spring meeting last year and the fall meeting last year, the Blacktail Creek project addresses some specific actions, that is fish passage, preventing fish entrainment, water quantity, riparian habitat, and in-stream habitat. I'm sorry, those are the actions specific to Blacktail Creek. The Blacktail Creek project itself has two components. If you remember, there's a Butte sewer line crossing component, which was pretty much a passage barrier for upstream and downstream fish movement, and then the Butte Country Club diversion and irrigation pond project. These are both permitted as one and constructed as one project. Just over a year ago, we didn't have a quorum. However, the council recommended using up to $229,000 of the contingency funds to complete these projects. If you look at the picture on the left, the before picture, you can see the concrete casing around the sewer line. I don't think you need to be a fish biologist to see how that could be a passage barrier for upstream and downstream movement. And actually, when we started working on the sewer line portion, it actually looked much worse than that, with most of the water flowing around that, creating basically a total barrier. The picture on the right, the after picture, you can see the concrete sewer line in the same place. It hasn't been moved, but we built a series of step pools to provide upstream and downstream fish passage. And that picture was from the 21st of April of this year. Second part of this project was the Butte Country Club irrigation pond portion. The goals were to prevent entrainment or fish getting stuck into the irrigation ditch and pond, allow upstream and downstream fish passage, move the pond offstream, reduce fish habitat within the pond for brook trout, and create increased floodplain while maintaining the country club's irrigation water. This photo is a pre-project photo. From the top of the photo to the bottom, you see Blacktail Creek flowing next to the country club irrigation ponds. And what they would do is they would put boards in right there, basically completely blocking up Blacktail Creek, backwatering this pond area for their irrigation. this area in the middle was a big pile of probably of material that was excavated to create that pond. So you can see between the green, which I learned from working on a golf fairway, from working on a golf course, and the creek, there was very little riparian area for the creek to work with. We installed a fish screen, so that the picture on the right is the fish screen. Water flows over that screen, irrigation water goes through it, down a pipe into the pond, and the fish don't get stuck in the irrigation pipe or into the pond. We also created a series of step pools to allow fish movement upstream and downstream while they get their irrigation water. And the irrigation pond is in the same place, expanded slightly. Where you see the coir fabric, which is a fabric, erosion control fabric, that will degrade over time. That area has allowed an expanded riparian area between Blacktail Creek and the pond. This pond is now offline from the creek, so irrigation water flows, the fish screen I showed you is up here, irrigation water flows in here, and then any remaining goes back to Blacktail Creek out of the pond. The important part is obviously the project cost. Construction costs were about $552,000. We did work with golf course for some additional revegetation and operations and maintenance. Our oversight budget was $69,000. We have about $15,000 that remaining, and we are not anticipating any major expenditures for oversight. I would like another after drone picture to complement the first one. And then we do have to do monitoring and permit closeout. We have to do a certified letter of map revision, and then we have to do some wetland monitoring to fulfill our Army Corps permits. We have spent $6,000 out of that, and probably 20, hopefully not full 27 to go, but that is what we have budgeted. If you remember, we did get a future fisheries grant from FWP, $30,000, and then George Grant did give us a grant for $2,000. So at the bottom, the amount currently spent out of the contingency fund is just about a little over $103,000. If we use the rest of the money for oversight, which we're not anticipating, and the rest of the monitoring permit closeout, that could go up to $145,000. But that would be the total amount of expenditures out of the contingency fund. And I think that's my last slide. And I would turn it back over to Kristie if you have any questions.
Any questions from the advisory council, Mr. Beal? See Bill.
Do you have a baseline of fish passage before the construction, and then monitor it after the construction to determine success of the fish passage?
I'm going to pass that off to Caleb with FWG.
Caleb Early with Fish Wildlife and Parks. Yeah, all we have for like baseline fish monitoring data is we did some telemetry work in there that showed some fish struggling to go both ways past that. They did ultimately pass, but like one of them was stuck there for like over several months, presumably stuck there. And then, we could redo something like that, or just like mark some fish. Sometimes what we'll do is grab fish from upstream, mark them, move them downstream, and go back and see if there's marked ones downstream. But if you just from looking at it, it was very passable now, and obviously before it was passable, not close, but not really close. So I think it's probably pretty passable now, but we can certainly evaluate it a little bit, but just anecdotally, it looks very, very passable relative to how it was before.
On the wetland, it seems like you created a riparian area, not a wetland, but a riparian area. So that's that's greater than what it originally existed in.
Correct, yes. That, where you see the, Brian or correct, I'm sure. Where you see the Coyer, that was a big mound of dirt and honestly a lot of golf balls from where they excavated out of the pond to the Blacktail Creek. So the creek didn't have any room to spread out at high flows. It had no way to get out of bank, and that area is actually lower than the fairway on the other side. So if flows come out of bank, it should flow out on this side, create more like area.
Any other questions from the advisory council with respect to Blacktail? I'm going to open it up for questions and comments from the public on the Blacktail project. Anybody on the line raising their hand? Okay. Thank you, Brian. Next up, we have Warm Spring Creek tour information and logistics that we're going to be going over.
Oh, that's me.
Is that you?
That's me.
All right.
All right, evening, folks. So I have the courtesy of pleasure this afternoon being able to lead a tour of projects that we've completed. Yeah, I saw some enthusiasm there. So a passage project that we completed at Myers Dam to improve passage for bull trout, as well as we're going to look at opportunities to do some habitat restoration projects in Warm Springs Creek. I know that's of interest to the advisory council and public. So first we're going to go to the Myers Dam site where we built a fish trap to facilitate FWP handling trout and moving bull trout that would otherwise be impeded by a diversion so that they can move to spawn. So, and then we'll look at what I call the arbiter site, anyway, by the town pump on that side of town. We'll go there, finish out our tour, and then go to Stumptown after Myers Dam to look at some possibilities that Kayla will talk to us about, some big fisheries projects. I did just want to review quickly, Warm Springs Creek is one of 13 priority watersheds in the Upper Clark Fork. It's a particular interest because it's a stronghold for native trout fisheries. It provides the uppermost critical bull trout habitat in the Upper Clark Fork River Basin. It provides substantial angling opportunity for native trout as well as recruitment to the Clark Fork itself. So we all know where we're at, I think, but here's the meeting. Let's see, and overall in Warm Springs Creek, I guess I just want to mention what our, from our restoration plans, which as all of you know are our guides, NRDP expenditures with the advisory councils and public's inputs. Our proposed priority actions for Warm Springs are flow quantity, which we've been working with you so we go on over a number of years. Addressing fish entrainment, so that's when fish become trapped in irrigation ditches, or other diversions. Also improving fish passage, enhancements to riparian habitat, and work on in-stream habitat. So to date, NRD within Warm Springs has been working actively on flow quantity. We're going to be this year completing a very significant project on fish entrainment on the Gardner diversion. And then today we're going to be talking about fish passage projects, the traps at Myers Dam, and then looking at future opportunities to address habitat for trout. So I'm trying to just lay out for everybody, it's been a very active watershed for natural resource damage program work over the last decade, and it's been really critical that we've had strong cooperation from Trout Unlimited, Fish Wildlife Parks, Forest Service, Fish Wildlife Service. So it's really been a very collaborative work in addressing the top priorities of the program for the watershed. So with that, wait, does anybody have any questions before I line us out on logistics? Just in general, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, Ray, I appreciate all that you've done on and earlier when when Dave was talking about the work that they did on the west side, is Dave still here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us what flow is from that project and the temperature of the water to contribute to the number one issue you had on the previous one?
Pardon me, Steve, your question was what the flow?
Yeah, how much additional flow, or how much flow are you getting out of that project now directly into Warm Springs?
Sure. My name is Dave McKernan. I represent George Grant Trout Limited in Butte. I live here in Anaconda. I watched this project that Steve's talking about from the inception. But anyway, we measured Pfeiffer Creek at an average of about 12 CFS. But there's actually two projects on site here. There's also a spring creek that adds 3 CFS of cold water. I mean, 42 degree water year round. So, and Pfeiffer Creek flows from between 18 to maybe 9 late in the summer. It's a very nice project. In my opinion, it's the type of projects that we need to be doing on Warm Springs Creek.
Good.
Yeah.
We'll be able to chat about that and
sure.
The overall scope of ways that we can address.
Did I answer your question, Steve?
Yeah, one addition, Steve Hill from Anaconda. Steve, what was the cost of that project? And some probably the length to put it in perspective.
Okay, so the length of the Pfeiffer Creek that we rehabbed was about 500 yards, 400-500 yards. The Spring Creek that we rehabbed is about 150 yards. What was your other cost? Cost was approximately $300,000. Our chapter committed about 125,000 of the, and then we just received matching grants. There were several grants that we went after, and yeah, the project is complete.
That's great.
Yeah.
Takes a village, right?
It does, yes.
All right, so I asked that everybody, Ray Vinkey, Natural Resource Damage Program. I'd ask everybody to carpool to the extent that we can. And where we're going to go first, you guys know we're in downtown Anaconda, but we're going to go to Myers Dam, which again is infrastructure owned by Beal Silverboat. I have a blue
This is
SUV.
Kristie Beal, it's mounted attached to your packet.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Point out where the cultures on the way up.
Yeah, so Pfeiffer, the project that they were talking about, is just the right of the hot crowd. If you look after you pass the hot crowd, you'll see a bunch of disturbed ground with a bunch of logs and everything. So folks can do it by. At least get an idea of the work that Steve's referencing. So, all right, so we're going to go to Myers Dam. I got a blue SUV. We'll be parked on the right-hand side of the road. Folks will take a left there and go through a gate. Try to just park as tightly as you can. There is a limited area to park. So hopefully we can 10 rigs. How's that for a vision? So let's try to get down to 10 rigs. And then, so we'll visit with myself, Caleb, Ben from Trout Limited. Then we'll go up Myers, come down Stonetown, past the Dairy Wildlife Management Area, do this project that we made, and then go to the other end of town to look at the project opportunities below the golf course. So, any questions there? I'm going to try to keep it 2.5 hours. So, and folks can cut out at any point. You just want to see Myers, and you can look after that, or so forth.
So I would just like to put this in context for the advisory council. We are in 2026, we are looking for the revision to our restoration plan in 2028. As Ray put it, we've Gray's been actively, and Ben have actively been working on the Gardner diversion, which, fingers crossed, knock on wood, is going to get constructed this year. That is effectively going to take the rest of the allocation in Warm Springs Creek. So as we're driving around looking at these projects, we're kind of framing the discussion for where this council wants to look at projects in 2028 and whether you want to allocate more money to finish the remaining passage project, which would be the WMA diversion. And then I think what Steve and Dave are getting at is what is the kind of the bang for our buck, or what type of resources do you want to start thinking about looking at in terms of habitat projects in Warm Springs Creek? And we're using Warm Springs Creek, but this habitat project discussion I think has implications throughout the park board. We've looked at and we're addressing a lot of the major infrastructure, major diversion projects. So looking into the future, what are our actions and what are our what do we want to start thinking about in the next edition?
Does anyone on the advisory council have any closing comments or questions? Hearing none, anyone have any closing comments or questions from the public? Anyone online raising their hand? All right. With that, I will adjourn this meeting.
I've got room for 3 people if they want to ride the street.
I've got room for 3.
Oh, okay.
Okay.